But you get to the point, if it's ever becoming not fun, then it's not fun doing it. And it's still fun. And I'm feeling a little twitch about it starting to be a little unfun for a second.
But doesn't that rise and fall? Doesn't that go away?
It does. So you sort of have to make a big move. And that's stop. Like I had the opportunity to do a block downtown and a block in Hillcrest and this other project. And it's like, you know, I don't think I want it anymore. I don't want it that bad. I always wanted the next project and the next deal. And at this point, I think I want to educate the architects on what I do. I think I want to help them liberate themselves. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy being at Woodbury, and I'm scattered. I was supposed to teach last Friday, and so I get a text, are you coming? Or it was Monday. I forget whatever it was. And it's like, holy shit, I forget. And it just, that's not good. That's not right for the people that paid the money to go to school. I want to teach people to do what I do on a nationwide basis. I do my seminars, and I think I got a lot out of that. I want to go to other schools. I think it's time for the give back. I want to be on the Planning Commission in San Diego, and I want to rattle some cages. When the shitty projects come through, I'm going to jack those people up. They get me on that board. I got to tell you, one of the smartest people in town is Eric Naslin. I don't know if you know Eric very well. Very, very articulate guy. And I sit there watching that stupid channel 23 or whatever it is. And there's Eric, so kind. He looks so silly in that tie. And he's just like, well, you know, it's not too bad. And then finally, Eric let loose, and it's like, this is one of the more horrible projects we've ever seen. I know I'm not supposed to talk about that, but I think it's time someone has to, because San Diego's just such a beautiful place. It's just not being taken care of. And if I can be that one bad guy there to help motivate and give the other people leverage, I think it's, you know, San Diego's been kind to me. It's my turn to be for payback, whatever that's worth.
One of the things that, you know, we talk about San Diego is this broad, open landscape, and yet, in many occasions, your own home housed it's your office.
Always.
And this is an example of a home office, and for most of us, it seems like a normal idea. It seems to be convenient, but can it also have a darker side of it's always there, or how have you dealt with your private residence and your office always being adjacent?
This is actually the sweatshop in the Union. My office was over here, and then we had the desks there. That was the old Union Hall that we saved. And that I had to commute, and I've never been a driver. I love cars, but I've never been a driver. And I had to drive from La Jolla down here to downtown. It was horrible. Having the office, which is basically right next to our house right now on top of the cube, is the only way to go. I mean, if you think, I present this when I speak, this math, basically, just to give you the short stroke, because I haven't driven, you know, an hour every day and all those miles every day, I have like 1.4 years of my life that I haven't spent on the road that you have if you drive. And I look at that, so I've actually, you know, in sort of quantum physics term, I've enjoyed 1.4 more years in my lifespan in the same time frame you have. And I really think that living above the store is a true urban, civilized way to live.
And when you're in your office, one of the things that struck me when you shared these with me is does that office work start with a watercolor? Has a watercolor been traditionally part of your design process? I mean, do you use the home or the office to draw these? Or, I mean, how?
These happen up in Idaho, strangely enough, because I get bored real quickly, that ADD, or the kids, they have adult ADD. They've taken the test for me. So when I'm up in Idaho, I do these watercolors, and these are all from memory. These are, you know, I just remember.
So this is after the building's already been?
After or during construction, or after it's drawn, or what have you. And we always build and model. We always design and model. That's the only way I can do it.
Well, that's what struck me, is you've said that publicly, is that the model building is kind of your version of CAD. I mean, like, you work in that three-dimensional space. And then it struck me when I saw these that I didn't know how that fit into your model building. And if you take some time away from the practice, will you still build models and toy with
No,
ideas?
I'll do more, hopefully more of this stuff. And the models are actually of work, of buildings. So, you know, if I'm not doing a building, which I said I wasn't going to tonight, then I'll be doing the watercolors, hopefully, and drawings, and or whatever. Play with the cars. I mean, Matthew and I are, and Brittany's helping a little too, tearing apart a 56 Maserati right now. And to see how that thing's put together. It must be put together with 5,000 little sheet metal screws this long. It's pretty incredible. You know, so these artisans back in 1956, they built 21 of these cars. It's cool to see how that all went together. how they did. Basically, it's a big model. We build the models, they built the models, and it's a big car. And I really enjoy that aspect of it.
Is there a similarity in the car as a form or structure and your role in thinking as an architect of a house or a building as a
Well, it's
form?
always about design, right? It's always about proportion, how thick this is, how far away from that, how it changes the car, what's the color on the car, how does that change it? Just like a color would change a house, or a material would change a house or a building. Or like, for instance, how here, if you had real vertical pieces of aluminum in there, how it would change that feeling of that room. And if you quickly look up and look down, it looks like one sheet of glass, but it's actually pieces together. But if it was big pieces of aluminum there, it would change it. So automobiles definitely play a big role in how I see architecture. And I think buildings should be pretty. I think when they're kind of nasty and heroic and crazy, they don't really add that much. They detract by saying, look at me. And this is a huge building for the neighborhood. They said that as it was going in, but now everybody's pretty happy with it. So I'm happy the building filled up. I could have lost $12 million on this project by the building being an office building. So during construction, the whole thing was framed up and the office market just vaporized. So I changed it to 27 apartments during construction. 700 core rings through the slab, changed everything, had to load everything in the building before we sealed it up. It was crazy. But you just don't think about what if. You don't think about what can go wrong. You think of how you're going to make it right. And the second you doubt yourself, it's game over.
Where was the point in time where you realized that this wasn't a commercial lease opportunity and you went residential? I mean, where in the calendar does a decision like that be made?
It was irrelevant in the calendar. It was like we're sitting down talking to the brokers, and the brokers were saying, hey, you thought you were getting $3 a foot. It's really $2 a foot, and you're going to give away 20% of your rent on free rent, and then they're going to go shop 5 other people. It's like, what? Yeah, and it's getting worse. It's like, what? I'm going to lose my building. Yeah, your building's going to be vacant. If you can last 5 years with a vacant building, you'll be fine. It's like, what? And I don't know how many buildings actually haven't gone back to the bank, but this is one of them. And I stepped up and I manned up and I wrote the check and we finished the building and we got it done. And, there's all these people. There's one guy, CCDC, that got in my grill and starts going, hey, how come you didn't tell me you were changing from this to this? It's like, was that my job? That's, internally it's your job to be told that by people. So there's always going to be those people that are supportive and those people that aren't.
So you were out somewhat on a financial ledge.
Way out there.
So was that a 24-hour period? Was that a couple of weeks? I mean, how long did you sit there and dangle wondering, was the building, I guess it was at risk of being foreclosed on. I mean, you're dealing with a bank loan.
It was at risk of not being filled. The next step from not being filled is you run out of fund control for the loan carry. The next step is the bank says, you need to pay the rent every month. Well, there's no money coming in. Then the bank says, guess what? We're taking the building back. But I remember Greg Strangman coming over to our house in La Jolla. And I said, I'm changing to residential. And I remember Graham Downs going, oh, Johnny, you're doing that too early. It's like, well, Graham, guess what? I'm doing it. And we just put our head down and did it. And I think the other thing that was kind of crazy, which is kind of a little pathetic, but kind of I think how architects work, I was more worried about what people were going to think of me if I was a failure, rather than the $12 million. The money was almost irrelevant. It's like, how can I walk downtown with that building that someone else owns that was a failure?
Because you wouldn't be living on the penthouse at that point?
I would not be living there. And we sold our house in La Jolla, and that was on the market for 7 days. We had a 7-day negotiation, a 12-day close, all cash. So, boom, we got to move out of there. Whoop, then we got to move down, and we got to quickly build a loft in one of our buildings. Quickly did that. Oh, guess what? People are moving into our office. We got to move out of there into this. And then finally, it's like, I need a break.